So I've been in the business for 17 years now, and I've been really lucky. I mean, my career has taken me all over the place, pretty much from the very beginning. I went to grad school here in Chicago at the Medill School of Journalism, and they gave me this great chance at not only going to school here in Chicago, but also I got these awesome internships in DC and in London, which really helped me to understand what the business was going to be before I dove in. And as it turned out, that was a really good thing because, you know, school was tough. I mean, when I was in school, I remember most days I was pretty sure I was going to be an absolute failure. It's like, why am I here again? You know, I was convinced there was no way this was going to work. I mean, in fact, there was one low point. I was already in DC during the graduate degree, and I was just like, forget it. I'm not even going to try this. I lived in Georgetown, and so I walked over to the university, and I went up and I picked an application up for the U.S. Foreign Service. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not even going to try. I mean, there's no point. And fortunately for me, it all worked out. They brought us back to Chicago that summer because the 1996 Democratic National Convention was taking place. And I'm sure quite a few of you were in kindergarten back then. So just as a refresher, that was when Bill Clinton was getting nominated for the second time. And we had internships arranged with all of the different media that were going to be covering the convention. And my internship was with Tribune Broadcasting Bureau, which of course, as you all know, owns WGN. But for me, more importantly, they owned WPIX in New York. Now, I'm part New Yorker, and so I grew up watching WPIX. And the guy who was there covering the convention was their long-term, you know, political reporter. He was what Andy Shaw was to ABC7, you know, for over 30 years before he retired. Bigger than life. And all of a sudden, I'm the one who's there shadowing him. And at first, I was so intimidated. And then after about a day, I remember thinking, I can do everything that he's doing. You know, I was taught how to do all of that. Anything that was asked of me, I knew exactly what I was supposed to do and how to do it. And it finally dawned on me that the only difference between them and me was that they had 20 or 30 years ahead of me. That was it. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, I forgot to study for the Foreign Service exam. That was the end of that. Went on to finish my degree with an internship in London with a morning show that was like Good Morning America, which was awesome. Another really just great experience before kind of diving in. And finally moved to Washington, D.C., and I was hired as an associate producer for one of the bureaus out there called Hearst Argyle Television. Associate producer is a fancy name for a step above an intern. And I was making like $12 an hour. Now, if you think in Chicago that doesn't go far, let me tell you, in Washington, D.C., it doesn't go anywhere. So that was tough, but I was loving it. And from the beginning, it's like I knew what I was supposed to do. I had been well trained to do what I was being asked to do. So that was a huge encouragement. But I didn't want to be, you know, even though I really liked my job, I wanted to work as a reporter. I wanted to be on air, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was sending out tapes. Back then, we still sent out tapes, 3/4 tapes, if you've ever heard of that. And I wasn't getting anywhere. And at some point, I had this crazy idea that I'm from Mexico City originally, and there was this network that was new and up and coming in Mexico, and everyone had great things to say about it. And I was like, well, I'm not getting anywhere here, so I'm just going to move back home. And I moved back to Mexico City thinking, oh yeah, sure, I'll get a job. This won't be a problem, right? Okay, well, actually, I did get a job quite easily. I also lost it quite easily. The show I was hired for ended up not going on the air. That was the end of that, and I was sitting, waiting for another 5 months without a job. after, having done this big move, and my parents were furious that I had done this, and are you crazy? And I was very lucky. 5 months later, I got hired again, and this time it was amazing. That was my first really on-air job. I was hired to be one of the entertainment reporters for Televisión Azteca in Mexico City. Now, TV Azteca is now the second largest television network in Mexico. They broadcast worldwide. Obviously, working for a network, it was just an amazing experience. In the beginning, I was horrified because I was very much the political international affairs person. And it's like, oh my God, me entertainment, this is awful. I mean, how am I going to do this? And then I actually ended up having a lot of fun. I mean, I traveled all over the place. I was always in New York and in LA, covering all of these Hollywood junkets, going to all of these great events. I also worked 6 to 7 days a week, and I also worked 12 to 16 hours a day. And I had no personal life, but I had an awesome job. And at that point in my life, that's all that mattered. And I decided that I would come back to the US. But at that point, I'd been working in Spanish language media for a couple of years, right? So it's not like I can just start sending resumes or tapes to stations, English language stations here, unless I went really, really small, which would have been great if I'd been starting out. But at this point, how was I going to go from Mexico City to something like that small? So I decided that the route I was going to take was to send every tape I possibly could to every Univision station across the US. I had some gigs here and there, a few months with CNN, freelancing with them, which were awesome. But 6 months later, I had 3 offers with Univision Houston, San Francisco, and Chicago. I think we know which one I took. And I started with Univision November 1st, 2000. So it's been 13 years. And it's amazing. I never thought I would stay here, and yet I've never looked back. The 3 years that were at Univision were awesome. I worked with great people, a lot of talent. I had, because it was a smaller station in a bigger city, I had the opportunity to do a whole bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have been given at a really big place. So, I mean, I always say that at Univision I did everything except scrub the toilets. I was a reporter. I was the weekend weather anchor. I filled and anchored. I hosted one of their community affairs shows. I did everything. But I always knew that it was going to be a one and done thing. It was going to be one contract that was going to be the stepping stone. I wanted to work for mainstream English language media. And so when my contract was up, I said, thank you very much. I'm leaving. And I left without a job lined up. Nothing. I'd interviewed already with the news director at ABC7 with Jennifer Graves, but I had just interviewed with her, and I'd been told, the position's freelance, it's going to take a long time to hire, I can't promise you anything. Okay, sure, that's fine. 7 months later, I was still waiting. And then the phone rang, and it was Jennifer, and she said, Michelle, how would you like a job? And that was 9.5 years ago. I was freelance for many years. I did 4 a.m. shift for 7 years. That's horrible. It's not been easy. There's been a lot of ups and downs and self-doubt and a lot of sacrifice. But it's been almost 10 years, and I could not be happier. Which really just goes to prove that if you work hard enough, and if you're willing to sacrifice enough, it will work out. So that's my story, and I know that most of you probably have different paths that you're interested, not necessarily on air. It could be producing, writing, editing, shooting, but a lot of this really, it's at the end of the day, my path is very similar to a lot of other folks in this business. And so any questions you have, I'm happy to answer them. Can you be the weekend weather anchor? And I'm like, you mean the weather bunny? And actually, it was a great experience because they're essentially giving you 2.5-minute segment where it's just, there's no script. You're not reading a prompter. It's just you and the maps that you created and trying to tell the story around the maps that you've created of what's going on with weather. So in that respect, it made me a lot more comfortable with live television really fast. But the green screen was really trial and error. I mean, I think they let me practice on it a couple of times before like the first day I went on air, but it was kind of like, you know, you've got your prompter, which is showing you the maps. And it's kind of like, okay, you know, put my hand and let's see where the hand is lining up. So it's doing this a lot, you know, but it does. It really does. I mean, I attribute weather more than anything else I've done to giving me the ability to ad-lib that I do have. Well, I don't really prepare what I'm going to say. What I do is that when you're doing weather, you prepare all of your own graphics. You don't have somebody doing that for you. You prepare them. So you've got to learn how to use the AccuWeather system or whatever system it is that you're using to get your weather info from. And you know, there are all of these basic maps that already exist or graphics, and you're just punching in the data. And they're always in the same order. So really, once you put together the graphics, well, you put them together. And as you're punching your clicker and the map is coming up, you know, there it is. Just, you know, read it or interpret it. So unlike when you're reading news and you're anchoring and you're obviously following the script that is written verbatim in the teleprompter, with weather, it's kind of as if you were just jotting down a few notes and then going from there. We use Final Cut. 10? No, it's very different. But part of the reason why it's very different is because I worked for a network, not for an affiliate, and so the news is national, not local. And so right there, what we're covering isn't the fire or the accident or whatnot. It is more the financial news of the day, the political news of the day, so it is very different in that respect. Newscasts are also longer. So like your network newscast here is half an hour. In Mexico City, it's an hour long. But it also has a set entertainment segment. So there's 7 minutes worth of entertainment in every newscast, which is why they had, you know, a whole bunch of entertainment reporters. There's always a set sports segment as well, of course, you know, and no weather, just in the mornings. But because of that, the format is very, very different. It is a national newscast, not a local one. So the content is completely different. And I was incredibly fortunate to cover the election and to interview the candidates and to be there on election night when Vicente Fox won as the first opposition party candidate. So I did get a little bit of a taste of that, which was amazing, but it certainly was it really was just a taste.